retirement for about 6 years, 7 years, pretty long time in advance. With my partner, we worked out a buyout agreement, and I knew I'd want to get out of the business. I was getting burned out. The personal injury work, and it was a burnout. And the clients were getting to me, and the adjusters were getting to me, and I was saying, I'm pretty much had enough of this. So when I retired, it was like, okay, it's a relief, and I don't have to go through this anymore. But what I didn't realize, and the surprise, I guess, I didn't look at it as a surprise, but when I'm listening to the conversations here, is I do miss, and I still miss some of the problem solving, because after the years of doing it, you know how to do it, and you learn how to do it, and you get somewhat good at it. Yeah. And so that part of it I kind of miss. And I always liked to negotiate anyway, so it was kind of like, part of the daily activity that I didn't have. Fortunately, I had 6 years, 7 years to prepare for it, and I got into golf, and I was still active with some tennis at the time, so I still had other interests. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like I was thinking about it daily, and the balance was that not having the pressure far outweighed the missing the problem solving.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So actually, while you're still there, and this is kind of unique, we have a couple on the panel. So one of the, and I'm going to sort of put you on the spot, but not really. So one of the interesting parts is this. So when I come home from working 80 hours a week, we now spend 24/7, 7 days a week together. How might that work when you haven't been? You've known each other part-time for most of your lives, and now you're spending full-time. If you've ever done that with anybody, a brother, sister, friend, you'll start to find things that, wow, boy, maybe we weren't exactly right for each other, Put it that way. But then you've got to work through those. So maybe if you guys could share, was that a surprise when you spent 24/7? I know you guys operate very well together, but was there any surprises about now spending more time together?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not going to lie, there is an adjustment period. And I was looking forward to having him home. But the reality isn't always exactly the anticipation. It wasn't my house anymore. The TV was on during the daytime.
Oh, yeah.
But as he said, he gradually worked in retirement. So the previous 5 years, he was working most of the time out of home. He had his own little space. He created a beautiful space, little fireplace, got TVs, got a computer. Great place if you're going to watch TV during the daytime. And we came to that compromise beautifully.
Excellent.
I've always had a huge need for solitude. So that worked well because he has always had a huge need for sports. So even when he was working, however many hours a week he worked, he still was very, very active in whatever sport of the day. So now my solitude comes from going somewhere else. Chris mentioned my dogs. Love my dogs.
Oh, yes.
We go out hiking all the time.
Yes.
I volunteer.
Yes.
And then we're always happy to come back together again and have things to talk about. You can't be together 24 hours a day. We couldn't be together 24 hours a day. But when we are together, we really enjoy each other's company. So
Absolutely.
I think that's a win-win.
Yeah, you make a great team and you figured out how to make that work well.
Yeah.
That's outstanding. Yeah, and that was a great example. I've seen this as well. So they live 5 houses from me. So I've seen everything she said. It's true. In the process, and I see Jan take off in her car. Her car says, "See ya, OPEC." It's a Tesla out there. And if you read the license plate, it's one of those going, what the heck does that mean? See ya, OPEC. So that's Jan's car. I can tell when she's taken off with the dog and comes back. And it's just great to see how they've worked that piece together. How about anyone else with time? Yes, John.
It's interesting. My wife and I chatted about this last night.
Oh, yeah.
On our way back from Janesville, where we have our 2 granddaughters, 5 and 1, and I spent the day babysitting and trick-or-treating. That was a surprise. Getting to do that. That was a surprise. My wife and I talked about that. When I first retired, it was in February, and I didn't do anything. There's not much to do in Wisconsin in February and March. But April starts, and from the middle of April until the middle of October, I usually play golf about 2 or 3 days a week with a group of 11 other guys. And, now that's finished for the year. And so now we start our golf lunches once a week, but But we talked last night, and she said, I don't really see that much more of you since you've quote unquote retired. and I think why she retired before me.
She did.
And she started doing her thing with her friends. Today we had breakfast together, almost, meaning she was leaving the breakfast table as I was kind of rolling in. So we got to say, good morning, how you doing? That's fine. Yeah, great. What are you doing today? Nothing. I have a couple telephone calls and this thing with Chris this afternoon. And I said, what about you? What are you doing? I'm having lunch with friends of ours that used to work with me, Lane and Carol. And then I have a hair appointment at 3:30. And then, by the way, don't forget we're having dinner with Charles. It's our son at 6. So she left the house, and I'll see her for dinner tonight at 6.
That's awesome.
And so what I discovered was she really didn't change her life for me to retire. I don't know that I ever expected. I never really thought about it. But we do get to spend more time like vacationing. I wasn't able to do what Dale and Marty did. I live vicariously through their travel on Facebook, as they go. But we are able to just go away for a couple of weeks and not have to worry about anything, and that's kind of cool. And we see each other there, and we get along well together. I mean, she's kept me for 41 years, so I'm feeling good about that. But I think this misnomer that you're going to retire and you and your spouse are going to spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I don't. Maybe that might have been like my dad and mom's retirement, but that's not certainly my retirement. And I don't know any of the people that are my friends that's their retirement. And so, it's not like your life changes that much. You still have friends, you still have activities, you still volunteer, you still go to church, you do all those sorts of things.
Absolutely. Thank you. So there's different things also that happen in retirement that are, can be more serious, and those are we'll talk about those as well. But my question is there anybody who has questions? So what kind of questions for those who are approaching retirement? I've asked some of them here, but what was the biggest surprise? What about when the economy drops? What about when this happens? What about, because these people all went through 2008 with me as well, so they went through a 50% correction. They're all still here and retired, but what might they expect? What surprises might you expect about that? Are there any questions that you and the audience have? Or even better, I've got some of you retired in the audience, surprises you've had or things you'd like to comment on, or there's other stages of retirement as we've gone through. Any questions?
2 years ago, there was a death in the family, and we inherited our grandkids, moved home with us. Mm-hmm. But they have given more back to us than what we give them, really.
They have. They really have. They just have.
Yeah.
They're 12, 10 and 9 now. And as they say it keeps you young, but they don't tell you how tired you're going to be. It does keep us young. And one of the big things is that we have to look after our health because we don't know how long they're going to stay with us. Things may change. And so we really have been trying to be healthier. And that's a big plus. But they bring such little things, just bring you so much joy. That, yes, I'm dead tired and I don't want to pick that up again and I don't want to cook because when we retired, we didn't cook we made one thing. We didn't eat all day long together like that. So now these children came from a situation where they were never quite sure what they're going to eat or when they were going to eat. And of all the things with these marvelous kids, they still are afraid of that. So every day, this is breakfast, right, Grandma? I said, yes, it is. Well, when are we having lunch? I said, well, probably in about 4 hours. Well, can I have something else too? I said, yeah, you can have a snack. So it's constant. And they've been with us almost 2 years, and they still, that's one of our biggest things is for them to know there will be food at this time, there will be this at this time. Mm-hmm. And so we've given them a lot of stability, but I just hope, our goal is, if we have to, at least get the youngest one to 18, they can all move out together.
They have given more back.
Take care of each other, take care of each other. But, and they
That's
do
awesome.
get along, and they've had to because of their situation. They had to be close. And
They're 12.
so I don't know,
8,
but that was
no,
a big
12, excuse me,
change for us
12.
because we didn't expect that.
10 and
We
9
thought,
now.
and I'm not a real adventuresome
As-
person. I don't join everything.
They
but
say
I
it
do
keeps
like
you
the gardening.
young,
I
but
do
they
like
don't tell
doing
you
things
how
when
tight
I
you're
want to
gonna
do
be.
it. And I had always wanted to do more volunteering. Well, I could still do that,
we
but
have
I'm
to
a very
look after
ADD
our
person,
health.
and that makes me
Because we
nervous
don't know
because I
how
have to be there in the morning,
gonna
and then I
stay with
have to
us.
be there at
Things
2
may
o'clock
change.
because if you don't get to
And
school at 2 o'clock, so you don't get a good
we
parking
really
spot.
have been.
They don't get out till 2:45, but so that is my time every day.
It's a whole new set of rules.
Bring you so
It
much
is.
joy. It really is.
Yes, it is.
You know, so I don't feel like I have really. I don't want to go because I want to go volunteer and do stuff. But we've made it work, and it's hard, and
We didn't need all
it's heartbreaking. But I don't want to let
now,
these kids,
These children came from
slip through the cracks somewhere.
So when you were planning
Sure what they're
retirement,
gonna
you didn't plan for your grandchildren to move back in with you.
And of all the things, we
But-
always knew
Marvelous
that
kids.
they would be in there
They
because
Correct.
of the
They're
family.
close.
Yeah.
But the beautiful
So,
thing about it
every
is
day.
they've got stories as well.
This is breakfast
They do
right
pirate
now.
vacations. All the stories you hear they bring out as jokes to me.
Well, when are we
It's
having
incredible richness, but it is a
well,
lot of tiring. It
probably
was
about
not expected.
4 hours. Well,
And you'll find a
can I
lot
have
of that in
something
retirement, which
else
you've got to
too?
roll with the
I said,
punches.
yeah,
You got to
you
make
never said.
lemonade
So
out of
it's
lemons
constant. And
because you're going to
they've
find
been with
stuff
us
here, which is a
almost
big
2
part
years,
of it. You
and
know,
they
like
still-
you have a great
that's one of the
idea of how
biggest things
retirement
is
might
that
look.
you
And I
know,
know some of you in the
be
room.
food at this time
Maybe
for
you work at Harley Davidson. You're going to work on cars. You're going to do
so
something
we've
else.
given
But
them
then
a lot of
something
stability.
occurs and retire.
You
What
know,
is that?
but
What changed this?
I
Well, this
just
was a
hope
case. You know,
our goal
now
is
you live at your
have
brother's
to
house, but you didn't
at
know that was
least
going to
get the
occur
youngest one to
beforehand.
18, they
But these
all
things are
go together.
dramatic when they happen, and those are some of the biggest things to prepare for. Is have those discussions. Here's what I'm going to tell you. If you have rehearsed how you may, or even thought about how you may react if a child passes away, a child divorces, these are massive changes for our clients, financially, fiscally, and in purpose. But if you've thought about these, or at least begun to, what happens if, remember, and if not, then what? The and if not, then what's are the things that make retirement successful. If you need help from us, we'll sit down and talk with you about it, but it's still you coming up with your best solution for it, but we can often help with. But it's you rehearsing those before they happen that makes them often successful. And they may never happen, but it's almost impossible to be over-prepared in some of these cases. But this is a case that came out very successful.
Well, and just one other thing, in the vein of being healthy and things, you have to let go of all the expectations, all the whatever. And I had a stroke about 4 years ago,
Right.
and I had double blood clots on my lungs, and both of them were very, very serious.
Right.
Okay, that woke me up. I don't get upset. I just roll. Dave, on the other hand, can't quite get that yet. So I
It's
told
all our
him-
journey,
One
right?
day I told him, I said, he was crabby, kind of crabby and tolerant, kind of. And I said, I'm just going to give you a heart attack. And then maybe you'll
What
get
a
it.
gift.
And then maybe you'll get it. Well, I hope nobody has to have a heart attack, but start thinking about that. Is it really that important if I do that? Or if it's really?
Right.
It's not. It's not. And
Yeah.
so that's a good one.
Thank you. Yeah.
Like Chris said, you got to have something planned. I had a list. God knows she knows I make a list all the time. And after 3.5 years, I think I got one thing completed off that list. Added about 15 or 20, and now I threw the list away. But you got to roll with the changes. You got to be able to adapt. Otherwise, if you count on it all the time that you got to follow this regimen, it doesn't work out like that.
One of my clients also said this. You also have to have your own life. You can't rely on the other person because you never know if the other person is going to be there. So living your own life with purpose together oftentimes become very important, where if it's fully on one person, you'll find oftentimes, you've heard the story, Grandpa passes away, what happens to Grandma? Very quickly, she works together because they were together all the time, maybe in this we were talking about. But you'll also find many people today thriving for years beyond this happening with a couple. So women are going to be the single biggest holders of wealth in the United States simply because they outlive men in general terms and that they have all the money at the end. But it's a very purposeful thing. So, well, I'm not involved with the money. Well, at some point you have a very high chance of being so. So at least being somewhat involved has been important. Ken and I, when we do appointments, love to have both of us there, both the spouses, even if one is not interested for this very reason, right? Do you find it very helpful to have both there just to understand?
It absolutely is, because if something happens, then usually it's the wife in this case knows what's going on, like from passwords. I mean, like really, really simple things that you wouldn't even think about. It's not necessarily, hey, we have an IRA or we have a 401k. It's how do we access this? Yeah. What do you do with it?
What's the PIN number?
What's the PIN number? Right. Like, oh, there's life insurance policies out there. Oh, like there's just a lot of moving pieces on top of going through the grieving process as well. So, absolutely,
I agree.
And actually, one of the pieces of feedback we got, we did a women's event with some of our clients, and the Women's Advisory Board that got a lot of positive feedback. So, women getting together and talking about some of the financial issues. Because what we notice sometimes in the meeting is that sometimes we go pretty quickly through some of the topics because we've been doing it for so long, just boom, 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 boom. But there's times where there's questions that need to be asked, and sometimes they don't get asked. And sometimes when we're around women, like in a group, some of those questions come out more freely. So that's one of the things that we're going to be focusing on, I think, going forward is the Women's Advisory Board. We got a lot of positive feedback on that one, so kind of ties in with what you're saying here.
So it's, again, more contribution, ways we can help you get together. Because here's what I found. By combining you together, oftentimes, I've got two prostate cancer survivors who I've put together about 6 or 7 years ago, and they're in 2 different cities here, but together they've formed a relationship that they can support each other, and they can share the victories and then the setbacks, and they've both done very well. But these are the kind of things we're going to be able to find here. And you may, don't get me wrong, creating community is about like-minded people helping others when they can. What's interesting about it is we start with financial services. We understand that we help people retire. But what we have found is that you were doing this money was really a way to what was important to you. It was a resource to help you solve how you could go do what you wanted to do or what was important to you. So as we've done this for 25 years, it kind of hit me along the way. It's not really about the money. All the money says is, okay, I've got enough to be able to support this and this and this to prevent this fear from happening or whatever it is. That's what it's been for. So we get that. So we're trying to find things, how can we contribute to you in some meaningful way? Because some of you have great stories, and there's just a few. I can look in the audience. I can see all your stories. Last night I saw the movie Sixth Sense. Everybody seen it? It was on, so I happened to watch it. So I see your stories standing here. None of the other people in the room see them because we've sat together. Ken knows your stories as well, and they are phenomenal. And your collective wisdom in here can help somebody else have a much better life. All it is to realize, A, you're not alone. B, somebody else has been through it. A, B, and C, I got to go C. They're willing to share it. So it's amazing in here. So that's very important. Are there questions? I've got more questions I can go that people have brought up. Are there questions from the audience for the panel, for anyone else? Or anybody else have something they'd like to share with what surprised them?
We can plan and plan and plan and look forward to and anticipate. Life isn't going to be A, B, C, D.
That's right.
But what you focus on in life expands. If we focus more on what we have rather than what we've lost, it's going to be a win. It just makes such a difference. You have to be grateful. If you can't find something every day that you're grateful for, you're not living right.
That actually leads me to something that I usually start with, but I'm going to do right now. I would like to take 60 seconds, and I'd like you to take the piece of paper that's in front of you and the pen. And I'd like you to write down something you've been grateful for in the last 90 days. It's called Going Big. I normally start with it, but in this case, as gratitude came up, Jan, thank you so much, I would like to do that. And the panel, you can think of it as well. Write down something that you're grateful for, truly grateful for in the last 90 days. I'm going to give you a minute to do it, please. Okay, now it's called Going Big, beginning gratitude. We're going to have to call it something different because it didn't begin in gratitude. But I'm grateful for that. So my gratitude statement today is I'm grateful that I got to talk with a friend today about some of the struggles that they're going through. I got to share, listen, and ask questions and love somebody who had some things they're going through. I got to see my daughters get up this morning, and I got to give them a prayer off to school on the school bus. It's awesome, and got to talk with them a bit before they did. We got to trick-or-treat last night because our neighborhood is one of the few in Milwaukee that still does it on Halloween night in the dark. So just like I grew up, of course, it shouldn't change, right? But it did. So those are 3 or 4 of my gratitude statements. Ken, do you have one?
We are what we are today because of something that happened. So I'm grateful for this guy. One of my friend's dads. I was in 8th grade, played a lot of basketball. If you think I'm short now, I had a growth spurt in the last 2 months. So if you think imagine when I was 14 years old, how short I was, right? But I could grind, I could play, I could hustle. That's always been who I was. And I wasn't going to play high school sports at all. I was going to play high school basketball because I didn't think I had what it took. This guy literally pulled in my driveway at my mom's house while she was there and said, "I heard you're not trying out for basketball." And I said, "Well, how do you know that, right?" "Well, I heard it through the grapevine. You're getting in my car, and I'm taking you to high school basketball for freshman tryouts." Made the team. All the rest is history. But someone believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, and I'm grateful for that guy. That guy has no idea I'm telling the story right now. I'm actually going to go back to Sheboygan, where I'm from originally. I'm going to knock on his door and probably tell him one of these days, because he really changed who I am as a person as far as what I love. Someone believed in us. Someone believed in me. We believe in all of you guys. We want to hear more of your stories. Your stories make you who you are. We love hearing that stuff. So there's no more committed than all of us here as far as clients go, and also Chris, myself, the rest of the team. There's no one more committed to your better outcome, whether it's financial, whether it's health, whether it's this or that. We're here for you guys. I just want to let you guys know that.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Yeah, we believe in you. Now, I got to ask this question. When beginning in gratitude, anybody like to share what they're grateful for?
I'm actually very grateful for the life I have. My husband was able to support us for all the years. I didn't work when we first had our kids, and then did. He did pass away, but it worked out that I'm financially set, which is absolutely wonderful. I'm very happy for my family, my siblings. I have great support with friends and my own kids, and very happy that my daughter and her family moved back from Dallas, so I don't have to fly down on a Friday and back on a Sunday, and have my 3 little grandsons who I was able to go trick-or-treating with, and
Outstanding.
could walk as fast as the 2-year-old. So it's great to have them close and not have to watch them every day like she wanted me to.
Because that is one of the
you
things.
have to put restraints on how much you're willing
That
to.
is one of the things. So how do I not become the 24/7 babysitter for my children who think that since I've retired, anybody here? I hear the whole crowd went, I love my grandchildren. Some of them move in with us. However, it's nice that, and this is what I hear from them, this is nice, but they go home. Because Papa and Mama, Grandma, we're tired. Right, exactly. That's why, but that's a great one as well. Absolutely. John, sure.
So
Sure.
mine is real similar to Ken's. I'm grateful to Andrew Saranovich. Nobody knows Andrew Saranovich. Andrew Saranovich was my high school senior creative writing teacher. And like so many people where I'm from in the Ohio Valley, near a little city called Steubenville, Ohio, you graduate from high school and you go to work in one of 3 places. You go to work in the steel mills, the power plants, or the coal mines. Those are your choices. And I was just going to graduate and follow my dad and my uncles into the steel mills. That's what I was going to do because that's what everybody in my family did. And he just looked at me one day in the middle of class and said, "You know, Mr. Zorbini," he always called everybody Mr. or Ms., and he said, "Mr. Zorbini, you are an unpolished diamond." Now, I've never had a teacher. They call me lots of things, but nothing to do with the diamond. And he just said, "See me after class." And he said, "You know, I just read this incredible thing that you wrote." He said, "You need to go to college." And I was like, "I go to college? Are you nuts? You know, I don't have any money to go to college." And he said, "I've talked to the football coach, and we're going to find a school for you to go play football, and they're going to pay for you to go to college." So my life would be very different. You know, I'm with all of you today. I'm sitting here with all of you at Blue Mound Country Club. And that's great. I mean, I imagine my life would have been great had I gone to the steel mills, except the steel mills are all shuttered up because, you know, they don't exist anymore. But wow, you know, talk about being grateful for something. Had that guy not said something to me, honestly, I would have graduated, and I would have gone right to work. I would have graduated on a Sunday, and I would have gone to work on Monday at the steel mill.
Thank you, John. Thanks for sharing that
Thank
as
you.
well.
Thank you.
Anyone else share their gratitude statement?
100 grand.
I'm grateful for anything else.
You don't have candy? I suppose you have.
Please, yes. Grandkids?
Yes, please.
Near where I live.
Yeah.
And a couple weeks ago, I went and visited one of my granddaughters, and it was so wonderful being with her. She had just turned 2, and but besides my grandkids, some of my kids, Peter's my oldest.
Yeah,
son,
I know.
so-
Exactly. This is
But-
Peter's dad here, by the way. No, he did not make him say
I
anything.
didn't say which of my kids. I said some of my kids.
Some of them are here. Yeah. Could be Lisa.
But, you know, I don't have 24/7 responsibilities for my granddaughters, but they really are special and bring a lot to my life.
Oh, that's outstanding. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that as well.
I live a life of gratitude. I'll be honest. It's
does.
just a habit.
She does.
And I wake up every morning and I stand in front of the mirror and I say out loud, "Thank you for my strong, healthy body." And it is such a habit that one morning I forgot he's standing next to me. And he looks left, he looks right, and he turns, he walks out the door. He told me later, he says, "You are so strong."
That's great. I love it. I love it. That's awesome. I love it. It reminds me of a thing I say to myself every day as well. Same thing. Byron, Byron, you had something you wanted to share. It was a comment as well. I thought it would be very pertinent.
Yesterday, Cindy and I were in the grocery store. That's another advantage of being retired. You can go with your wife to the grocery store during the day. And I can get stuff I want. That's not what I wanted to share, though. We met a lady from our church who's single, but her son at age 42 passed away suddenly, unexpectedly, from an aortic aneurysm. And she left a wife and 3 kids. He ran a business, a mechanics business. And the business wasn't paid for. Their house wasn't paid for. They had no preparation for this at all. So that just reminded me what we need to do with my kids. You know, my kids are 35, 37, 39. It's time for them to sit down and think about that. What would happen? And, you know, we've been blessed for a long marriage, for a long life, but I think we need to share that with our kids. So that's one thing I'm going to do Thanksgiving when we all get together.
That's outstanding. I'd like to hear
On
what you're
that
saying.
same subject, though, okay, we have a 27-year-old daughter and a, 32-year-old son-in-law. And to get them to try to think of that stuff, because they're going to live forever, okay? And they're going to be, you know, you can't, and you just try to get them to move forward in that. And I'd love to maybe afterwards, we don't take everybody's time, but just how you're going to try to get them to buy into this idea.
Let me share something is find an example of someone they may know, whether it's a relative of yours or so forth. I can use the example of my brother who will be turning 74 and his wife is 70. He's in a memory care unit in Oshkosh and she's in a nursing home in Oshkosh. Both of them lived long lives. And they were farmers and they sold a farm, so they've got enough to support themselves in their care. But I can bring that up as an example for my kids and say, you never know when this is going to happen, so you have to be prepared. So that's what I would suggest. Find somebody that they would know that it's in a situation like that.
On this line, hold on one second, John, but on this line, one thing we're going to look at is a lot of what we do oftentimes is we help our clients' children. It's a family that we dedicate ourselves to. So what's interesting about this, we're looking to do some things, which I'm going to call it coaching at certain ages, 18 to 24. Maybe what you should look at from 27 to 36. Having this be part of our service, what we do. And it may be something that they're interested in, it may not be. One thing I'm going to tell you we're not in the convincing business. And nobody is. You can't convince anyone. You try leading a horse to water, it's going to be like, whatever, I'm not going if it doesn't want to, right? But at least be open to that. And I think what Byron said is take a moment where it's salient. Take somebody in the family. Take something that was important to them, that friend that passed away, or something that's occurred. And that oftentimes becomes a catalyst, at least to be open to having the conversation. Don't stop trying to but also don't pester them. But we're finding that this may be very helpful for us to have something where, here, this is a resource. Here's some recordings. Chris again brought this idea up, and here's a 3 or 4 or 5 minute thing, and you can look at these. Here's 5 things you should do at this age. Have you looked at insurance? What if, and this is what I do with couples, if so-and-so doesn't walk in tomorrow, what do you do? And then you look at the other one. And you look at it both ways, and I'll tell you what. Being prepared for that, I've got many client scenarios where when one doesn't walk in tomorrow, the first thing before their clients are like, I don't know, I call you. Well, you're not even a client yet. Why would you call me? But they don't really know. But that's a great point to start having that conversation now around events. But would that be helpful if we had something that we'd prepared for them to use, that you could use? Because when parents tell kids something, how often do they listen? I would love my children to understand how to do this.
Yeah.
And when it's tough, because some of them get to 50, like everybody that got to 50. I should really start doing something about this now. There's a magic age at 50 where people wake up. Now, what if they could get that at 40 or 35, and some of our clients' kids do? But I got to tell you, a lot of them wake up at 50 going, I really got to start putting money away now. I've got friends, super good friends, who it's completely different because they've decided that they're not going to do anything about it. And there's a couple that have.
As somebody who recently just went through this, so I'm 43 years old with 4 kids and a little bit different, but one way to engage, interestingly, my wife and I were having this conversation the other day, and we asked ourselves, what would we do, or how would we want the kids to be raised if something were to happen to us? And we have a plan in place, but the interesting debate actually came up in what happened if something happened to our backup. So the folks that we put in place, and it was this elaborate discussion that I wasn't prepared for. We were actually imagining our kids being raised, for instance, up in Marshfield, Wisconsin, versus with my brothers in Boston, and what would that be like for the kids? And for the first time, we were thinking through what that experience might be and what the outcome was. And I just share that as an add-on to, had we not had that discussion, we wouldn't have thought about what that experience would be and what that means. And it's interesting when you hypothetically go down that path and you start thinking about the impact of the people you love in that regard. So I just thought I'd contribute as a helpful idea.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece, Ted. I would also say this, is that what I'm learning over the course of my life right now is that something happened to us. So like the most successful basketball players got cut. Michael Jordan, one of the best basketball players of all time, got cut, right? So there's something inside of him that wanted just to be the best, right? Best golfers. If you ran a company, if you started a company, if you work at a great company, something happened to us along the way. What is the reason why we have money, right? So we were probably down on our luck at some point in time, and something changed for us. Something happened, right? Or we learned from when we were down or when we got cut. So I would actually look deep inside of yourself. Everybody has that story of why am I a financial advisor? I'm not going to get into it right now, but there's a real reason. If I really went back in my childhood to realize what I'm doing right now, it all makes sense. It all kind of makes sense. So dig deep inside yourself and look for that story of when things were going well, when you're down on your luck, when you had your last dollar and you had to make it work out. What happened? What turned around? And maybe those are some of the stories that we can share with our kids and some of the grandkids and friends that we know as well.
And I would say appreciation and gratitude is important. I'm going to come back here, but appreciation and gratitude is important because if you take extremely successful people, there are many cases they are desolate, they are listless, and if you happen to hit this incredible goal that you expected too early, it's actually an extremely demotivating item. They said the climb was much more fun and much more important than the attainment. That's why lottery winners often end up what? Broke. Because they don't appreciate there was nothing that got them there. The hard work that you've done that's got you, the hard work that your kids are getting there, those appreciations, those tied stories together for the families are wildly important. There's wealth in that.
So from my perspective, I'm a lot younger than most people in this room. So my perspective in that just come from a place of absolute love and admiration for them. You know, if you say, you have to get this together, you have to do this because of this, this, and this, it'll probably just go right over the top of the head. But if you go from, I've seen this happen, it would break my heart if it came from you, if this happened to you, you know, this is what you can do, I absolutely love you guys, this is the steps to do it. Instead of a place of, you know, forceful And I think that would make all the difference in the world, because it might not hit now, that second, might not hit a year later, but I can guarantee you at some point that will hit them, and that'll be that story that Ken's mentioning for them, because it's like, oh my gosh, Dad told me this a long time ago. He was so right, and it'll hit at the absolute perfect time.
So, for the panel here, everyone's retired or semi-retired or a second career, right? There's a fair amount of people in the audience that are not retired yet. So maybe 1 year away, 2 years away, transitioning right now. What are some of the things that you would have done, knowing what you know now in retirement for many, many years, right? Knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently, preparing for this time frame? Doesn't have to be financially, but if it is financially, some of that would be good too. Or what would you have done the same? So if anybody would like to kind of take that one and run with that, that would be fantastic.
Sure, anybody, yeah.
Well, what happened, I retired at 62, so the plan with Chris was to try to make it to 63 and a half so that you'd have 18 months of COBRA,
Correct.
and then you could go on Medicare. So as everybody knows, everybody's saying that, well, I have to work till 65 because I need health insurance.
Right.
So what do I do? So the preparation for that was really kind of scary, and I did take 18 months of COBRA and then had to go on the Affordable Care Act, and so he referred me to an insurance broker who we've had here for the Medicare part of it.
That's right.
But his partner. So you really have to educate yourself and figure out, am I going to be able to pay $1,350 a month for a single insurance plan, which doesn't cover everything. So,
Right.
There are going to be things that come up. So you really have to start thinking, what does this look like for me if I leave before I have insurance? I was the only one impacted, but if you are a spouse, a friend of mine thought that when her husband went on Medicare, she got Medicare
Yes,
too,
yeah, that's
and we
another
all had
misnomer.
to advise them, no, you don't. So
no.
now I don't know if that changed her husband's retirement
Oh, yeah.
plan because of the insurance.
Yes.
So that's a big piece of it, and just looking ahead to, what is a typical day going to look like for me? What do you like to do? You can do whatever you want, whenever you want. You can say no, you can travel, all of these things that everybody's been talking about as far as filling your days. And so I think just kind of looking ahead and having a little picture in your head as to what will a typical day look like, what might this look like financially, am I going to be able to go, on these vacations that I want to, and, where will I be at that point? I think just being very objective about it.
And I think one good thing as well, as maybe Jane is saying, learning to say no is probably one of the most important things that you'll learn as a retiree. Learning to say no. Because every time you say yes, you're saying no to 100 things. You got to be willing to say no, or I'll think about that first, because the first thing that happens, oh, you got plenty of time, I'll volunteer for this, babysit this, and your list becomes, and if you don't decide what retirement's going to be for you, others will decide what it is for you. Make no mistake about that. Is it your retirement? Exactly. Or is it others' retirement they're choosing for you? And it's okay to have a little bit of both, but to be intentional in retirement and have the retirement you want, you've got to learn to say no.
I would. You guys are going to owe me big time. and all of you are here, so you already know what I'm going to say. I think the biggest thing that's helped us is Chris was at Ziegler at the time, and we looked. There was an ad in the newspaper. Oh, well, what the heck, let's check this out, retirement-type planning or so on. And people come up to me and say, what do you do? How did you figure this out? And I say, you know what? I sleep well at night because I know I got somebody that's the age of my kids advising me how to take care of my funds so I can do what I want to do. That's scary. This is the same age as my son. One's a little bit younger, one's a little bit older.
That's right.
But I sleep well at night. So if you can sleep well at night, and you got the nest is kind of under control, so to speak, you got to roll with the punches. I have no idea what my calendar looks like for next month, but I know by the time next month is here, it's going to be full of stuff. Some things I want to do, some things I've got to do, but it's okay.
I think the biggest thing that's helped the two of us is we've been kind of volunteering all the time in different roles, not trying to rush to the front of the line and say, oh, I'll do that for you. But if nobody else raises their hand, I'll say, well, if nobody else wants to do it, I'll do it. And you'll be amazed how often that happens. But I say no more now than I say yes, because it's got to be something I feel is really, really critical. Correct. And my wife does the same thing. So I think it keeps us young, keeps are healthy, and I think we'll keep playing the game. I call it a game, as long as we can connect the dots. And we're in a panic mode right now because we're starting to clean out the basement. That's got Grandma and Grandpa's stuff. It's got other Grandma and Grandpa's stuff. It's got our kids' stuff from when they were that age. And I said, well, I'll just get a big red dumpster and I can take care of this. And for better or for worse, but not for lunch, works. I'll drive her nuts. So I give her space and she says, what about this one? I said, well, that's a good idea. We ought to keep that. Sure. And I cannot go grocery shopping because I will drive her nuts. But get involved in things now, the bottom line, and know that you can sleep well at night. And if your health is okay, retirement's a piece of cake. And then you worry about your kids because you're a parent the rest of your life. And we've kind of learned that the hard way a couple of times, but you're always a parent.
I've been through retirement with you 25 years. 25 years I've been through retirement with you. I've been through the two worst markets in history, and you're all still retired who want to be. So what we notice this is by faith alone. The first correction, 15, 17 years ago, I was like, I sure hope this works.
It's, the thing
I'd read about it, but I hadn't lived through it. The second one that occurred, hey, I'm pretty sure this is going to work. I'm 100% certain now that I know, listen, we've hit the two worst markets in history for a 10-year period, and you're still retired. I know this works. And there's a knowing that occurs with this that we can transfer to you. It's a knowing of knowing it works and how to work and the systems do. But the key is our goal is to help people sleep, and our goal is to help them realize and do and spend their time and worry on what's important. Because your cup of energy, some people tell me as I get a little older, it reduces. The cup of energy, and I don't want to spend it on stuff that's extraneous. I want to spend that cup of energy on what's important to me. So our goal is to help it. But thank you for that admission. Yes. I appreciate that.
The thing I think that everybody is saying up here is it's two things. It's a financial and an emotional decision. Security in both areas.
Yes.
And it's different for everybody. There is not one. I mean, we're all everybody up here is retired, or in his case,
sort of.
Thinks he's retired. Pretends to be retired, but he's really not. But it's different for each person, and but it's important to try and have a plan, obviously. But for me, it was a matter of financial security. And once I had the confidence in Chris that I could, then it was a matter of just emotionally trying to prepare myself as best I could. And for me, I was lucky because I was able to sort of gradually retire.
Right.
I could do some work out of my house and then know what the final day was going to be, and also being able to plan it is nice. So. But it's different for everybody. So,
Thank you for sharing that, Michael.
I gave you one thing that I think gets overlooked. We talked about health and that kind of good stuff and financial stability. I think the thing that really makes a difference for my wife and I is we always stress family as a high priority. We have, like in the TV show, our 3 sons, and I tell you, I look forward to, every one of them calls in at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, to see what's going on, to talk about how the kids are doing or something like that, the grandkids. And I think that's a sense of stability and also a sense of warmth, if you want to use that term. From an engineer, that's kind of scary. But it holds us together. And it's probably the neatest thing we have going for us. And I hope you have that, or you can foster that with your kids, because it really makes a huge difference for us.
And we wanted to have some times for questions. What we'll do is, if some of the panelists can stay up and talk a bit, or we'll stay around and talk a bit as well. But I really want to thank, let's give our panelists a hand for sharing, please. Thank you. And And I want to thank you, and I'm grateful for your relationship with us and sharing that, because I do understand this. The value that you guys have up here, and you in the audience as well, is massive. What we want to do is to be able to have panels like this that we can bring out to people who are pre-retirees to really answer their questions. So thank you for participating in the first retiree panel that we've had. Our goal is to contribute to your life in some meaningful way. Not to be your best buddy sitting there if that's not for you. Some of you love the financial, and the rest you're like, well, that's fine. But to many of you, when I get the comment like I got 3 days ago when a client walked out and go, this client's had a stillborn child and their son had committed suicide during their lifetime. And they go, we consider you family. It gives me shivers. This is what it's about. Have we been able to secure a relationship for that? So you can go to somebody and look at finances. That's up to you. But when it comes to a community relationship, we love what we have with you. Look for that if you're looking for an advisor as well. So I want to thank you for your time. Please take a moment to fill those out. We will remain around for any questions that you guys may have. And if the panelists can, they'll remain here as well. But I want to thank you most importantly because I know one of your most precious resources is your time. So I want to thank you tremendously for that. And we look forward to seeing you in our meetings as we sit down. Thank you.
Have that, or you can foster that with your kids, because it really makes a huge difference for us.
We want to have some times for questions. What we'll do is, if some of the panelists can stay up and talk a bit, but we'll stay around and talk a bit as well. But I really want to thank. Let's give our panelists a hand for sharing, please. Thank you. And I want to thank you, and I'm grateful for your relationship with us and sharing that, because I do understand this. The value that you guys have up here, and you in the audience as well, is massive. What we want to do is to be able to have panels like this that we can bring out to people who are pre-retirees to really answer their questions. So thank you for participating in the first retiree panel that we've had. Our goal is to contribute to your life in some meaningful way. Not to be your best buddy sitting there if that's not for you. Some of you love the financial, and the rest you're like, well, that's fine. But to many of you, when I get the comment like I got 3 days ago when a client walked out and go, this client's had a stillborn child and their son had committed suicide during their lifetime. And they go, we consider you family. It gives me shivers. This is what it's about. Have we been able to secure a relationship for that? So you can go to somebody and look at finances. That's up to you. But when it comes to a community relationship, we love what we have with you. Look for that if you're looking for an advisor as well. So I want to thank you for your time. Please take a moment to fill those out. We will remain around for any questions that you guys may have. And if the panelists can, they'll remain here as well. But I want to thank you most importantly because I know one of your most precious resources is your time. So I want to thank you tremendously for that. And we look forward to seeing you in our meetings as we sit down. Thank you.